focus on millets, which was brought in 2023 by celebrating International Year of Millet, was important, not only from Indian perspective, but putting India on the globe also. Not that India is away from the globe, but bringing our practices back. And I remember visiting South Africa, and I met some people there who said, "Ma'am, you guys have increased our work." I was like, "In what sense? Positive, negative, what?" They said, "By bringing focus onto millets, our businesses have increased multifold, and we are constantly importing food from India because millet is the food of fashion today. Everybody is becoming more focused and trying to understand what is the magic about millets. How do you consume millets, especially with changed culture, with changed values, many ways? How do you make millets fashionable, palatable, and easy to work on?" And I can say that the kind of work past 1 year we've put in, we've been successful at all these levels. This is more or less like a culmination of the program which we've put in for past 1 year. And I'm calling it we because I consider myself part of my Magic Millet team. They are all my friends. We've sat down, we've thrashed the idea. And of course, Ministry of Culture has sponsored the work and worked with us, or we work with Ministry of Culture. What is relevant is, I'll take you a little deeper in terms of history and history of India. History of India, of course, for millions of years, for a few thousand years, we've been eating millets. That's one part of the story. Because the grains which are found in Harappa, in the granary, which we all read, but हमको कोई स्कूल की किताबों में ये लिख के नहीं बताता कि वहाँ से कौन सा अनाज निकला है. वहाँ हमको खाली बताया जाता है ग्रैंडरीज थी, बड़ी बड़ी ग्रैंडरीज थी, और वो सुपर स्ट्रक्चर्स वहाँ से निकले in Harappan civilization without disclosing that the millets were the ones which were stored there. It wasn't wheat, it wasn't rice. Which goes to show that this is an ancient food which Indians consumed for a very, very long time. From the beginning of civilization, we've been consuming millets, and agricultural practices have been used to further increase the production. That's one part of the story. The second part of the story is, how did we start consuming maida so much? How did wheat become fashionable? And how did rice, of course, is also one thing which we've been eating. But maida kahan se khana shuru kiya? It's not our food. It is a food of colonialists. So let's relate food to the history, not so pleasant history, but a pretty pathetic history of our country, which is imperialism and colonialism. During the imperial and colonial period, they needed a lot of labor, which had to work at shipyards, which had to work at dockyards in Calcutta, so on and so forth. And the families would be left behind in the villages of Bihar, UP, wherever, and the migrant labor will be going there. And all the men, I mean, no offense to the men's capability of cooking food. I think they are fantastic cook because most of the chefs are men. But if they have to go for other work, they spend least time on cooking food. You have to go early in the morning, you just get dressed, leave everything, order karenge khana bahar se. If they are by themselves, mostly. And at that point in time, when these were the people who were working all over, the availability of food was itself an issue. And then came the industrial format of food, and which is ki bun, jisko hum abhi maska bun or bread bun, or what do you call it? What we eat in Maharashtra? The pav bhaji. All this came in as part of industrial food. So the bun, the bakeries round the corner not only became fashionable but competing, because there was nobody to cook at home. There was no households to provide food for men who were doing hard labor. So maida became the staple food, And the white bread became the staple food, and people started eating because this was convenient. Kuch nahi, butter lagaya, khaya, kaam karo, ek cup chai lo. And this is where we have to understand the value of home cooked food. Not only nourishment, but nurturing human abilities, human mind, and how we lost this in the process. That's one side of the story. The other side also, which is as much part of the colonial past and the imperialistic past, is anything that Indians do is not good enough, including food. And Indians who were looking up to their masters made it to poor man's food, because the bread on the table and the butter on the table was anglicized version of your breakfast. So when Umaji was saying that South Indian meal has become the meal of the day as breakfast across the country, no matter which part of the country you're in, so I was in my mind thinking, oh, that's fantastic. Because this observation also means we are decolonizing ourselves and we are decolonizing our minds. Because decolonizing food habits is decolonization of the mind as well. Because everybody has started to learn the value of fermentation, the value of fermented food. And if I relate to South Indian food, immediately I relate to overnight or 2 days or 3 days old batter of dosa. I relate to idli, which is fermented again, steamed. Our Indian way of cooking, putting some podi over it, kuch nahi to podi dala, you're done for the breakfast. So fermented food itself, which people today are recognizing, sakraf, so on and so forth, are the ones which Indians use for millions of years, thousands of years. And as much part of this decolonization process is kanji. Every household, Jan, Feb, come Jan, Feb, we are all consuming kanji. Kanji, even the rice kanji, which is very popular down south. Why I'm relating to this narrative is that food is also about culture. And food is not just about nourishment, but it's a nourishment of a different kind. It's nourishing body, mind, and soul. And that soulfulness which we get when we eat our own food, we forget the values which are attached to that very food. Millets have brought the focus back on the values which Indian culture gave to the world and to ourselves. Unfortunate part of the history is that our minds have been so colonized that anything that is Indian has to be cast aside, and anything which is from other parts of the world needs to be recognized. So putting millet on the global map by celebrating International Year of the Millet was having twofold impact. First, reintroducing the food to our own brothers and sisters, that it is not just poor man's food. In fact, today it has become rich man's food, because the amount of nutrition, the dense nutritional value which millets can provide, compare it with any other food. Compare it with any other cereal. Answer is no comparison. The second part is, it's become fashionable to talk about sustainability. Everybody is talking about sustainable development, carbon credits, so on and so forth. But people are forgetting that sustainable practices of agriculture itself is what millets have to offer. So when you look at the intensified agriculture, how the Green Revolution ruined the lands of especially Punjab, Haryana, to some extent, how growing millets was a counter to that. But because when India became free and we'd been colonized for such a long time, we all know about famine, Bengal famine, droughts all over, bad canal system, no water availabilities, and all kind of problems which as an independent nation we would have felt. Again, the others who colonized and their people related to them were the ones who had to introduce food to us. And they introduced wheat to us, and hybrid wheat. And that wheat, uh, without going into an offensive mode. But wheat became our staple food. And we forgot that millets is something which our ancestors and our generations have been eating, and it was not just poor man's food, but was the best food to tide over the food security aspect. We forgot that. And we were introduced with hybrid variety of, I can call it the first GM food, was wheat for human consumption. I'm not going into gluten allergies, which most of us have developed thereafter and all that. That's a discussion for another day. But nevertheless, we got all that. And the impact is being seen in my generation, which is second generation, and the generation hereafter, the third generation from Green Revolution days. So third generation is seeing the maximum impact of hybrid variety of wheat, which we are all consuming. So tiding over should have been better done by putting focus on millets, which the then governments probably lack of knowledge, lack of research was missed out completely during this phase. So when we are reintroducing millet in the year of 2023, we are also trying to work on sustainability. And we are working on sustainability because if you look at the millets, most of the arid regions of the country are the areas where millets get grown, which means low utilization of water resource, which is a precious resource today. Low intensity of labor usage because you don't have to use that much water. So you are putting less labor. Number three, because of the arid region and it has different kind of minerals. So these are mineral rich foods as well. Magnesium, manganese, calcium, zinc, you name it and they have it. And that is where most of the humans today are using supplements. So if you're using millets, you don't have to use supplements. And that means from medical perspective also, this is a most healthy food to eat. And when your body is full of nutrition and full of minerals and materials that your body needs, obviously your health is going to be better. Less expense on supplements, less expense on medical aspects, and less expense and better health, generally better health. So again, this is sustainable because you're spending less on other supplements and vitamins and minerals which you take. The other aspect is from food security perspective. And the food security perspective, I can say that if you look at the life cycle of a millet gets completed. Like you plant a seed and within 2.5 to 3 months, you have the grain. Whereas if you look at other cereal, rice or wheat, the life cycle is 5 months and above. So from planting of the seed to reaping the harvest, the time taken is almost double. So obviously from food security aspect, these are hardy plants. They don't need pesticides. They don't need extra fertilizer. And they grow much faster. So within, say, a year, you can get, if you're getting 3 crops of rice or wheat, you can get 4 or 5 crops of millets. So your extra production also happens at a lower cost. Now to promote all this, Government of India not only made 2023 to be celebrated as Year of the Millet, but also on the agriculture perspective, we've given higher MSP. So 3,076 per ton is the amount which is one of the highest ever since MSP started to be given. It was reintroduced, not only reintroduced, it was introduced that millets need to be protected as species and millets need to be grown more and our farmers growing millets need to be promoted. And then MSP became part of the methodology where Government of India, Government of Haryana and several other areas, Karnataka maybe, has started to give MSP on the millets. India has the highest number of diversity when it comes to millets. And the types of millets we have, kodu to whatever small minor millets, I don't even remember the names, but buckwheat, we all eat buckwheat. So buckwheat is fashionable for others, but for us, Navratre shuru or kuttu ka aata ghar mein. That's the normal process in at least the North Indian households. And samak ke chawal is something which we all use. So these are minor millets which we all use. And then with more awareness, like I was introduced to kodu and I go to Tribes India to pick up a bag of kodu and so on and so forth. And any other millet, I don't even know, but I pick up all those and learn to sort of cook somewhere or the other. But now that the habits, our habits, including children's habits, have changed. So maybe devising new recipes to deal with the palate we are dealing with is one way of handling it. So I think the idea to make 2023 as Year of Millet was important to make millets fashionable. We all understand the scientific aspects. We all know how glycemic index gets to be controlled, how nutritional density helps us, how the next generation, because we'll end up by our bad habits, end up becoming, endemic of diabetes and so on and so forth. So to prevent all these lifestyle diseases, to live better life, to be more active, to deal with Hashimoto's of the world, and to deal with thyroid issues, which a whole lot of women are suffering from, this is the answer. So I think millets is just an introduction to two aspects from my perspective. One, how Indian culture and civilization promoted health, and whenever a country has to rise, the culture has to sustain itself. Otherwise, as people, we will never be confident about who we are and what we stand for. And all the battles are fought in the minds. So we continue to be in a war zone, and in that war zone, the battles have to be fought here. Millet is putting emphasis on our culture and thus needs to be celebrated. Two, our own habits, which these ancient bodies, I mean, in this lifetime, this may be a new body, but we are ancient people. We are carrying our genes from a very, very long time. So the genes will repel something which they do not accept. And all the Hashimoto's, the thyroid ailments, the diabetes is happening because we are not paying adequate attention. Body is repulsing all the rubbish that we are eating. Three, putting emphasis. Sister Shivani is here. I'm sure she will tell more about it. Emphasis on all the right vibrations, the right food, the right way of living, meditation, health, etc. is as much part of our living style. Let's get back to our roots, celebrate who we are, and take pride in who we are, what our history and culture is all about. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.